All right, I think we can get started, and other colleagues will join us as we roll. It's good to have you here. My name is Patrick Oyulu. I am the Health Promotions Program Manager at NJOR. I would like to start with an apology. Yesterday, we presented a session that should have been presented today. And this session was also supposed to have been presented yesterday. So there was just a mix-up. Nevertheless, the sessions have similar themes. So it is good to see some of you who were in yesterday's session and are here today. You're all very welcome. I hope you enjoyed the previous session by my colleague Veronica on the empowerment team. Today, we are going to talk about ethical and cultural considerations in refugee delivery of services. And basically, these are situations that we, normally navigate through as we do our work. And I'll just go straight to the session. There we go. Okay. Okay, there we go. Just give me a second. Getting some difficulties, so let me just stop it and then I'll share again. There we go. All right. I hope you can see me now. Okay. Can someone tell me if they can see me? Just in the chat. Can you see this? All right. All right, just give me a second. Okay, there we go. All right. We have our objectives today for this session, and by the end of this webinar, we'll be able to describe the importance of cultural competence in refugee service settings, define sensitivity, and identify the importance of cultural competence in service delivery. Then identify key individual and organizational approaches to culturally competent service provision, and consider diverse cultural backgrounds while delivering on our promises, and recognize intersectionality of identities within refugee populations and its impact on service delivery, and also encourage self-reflection on personal biases and assumptions. As we go on in our work jobs, normally we are confronted with different cultural backgrounds of people, to do issues to do with space, to do with, how to integrate with communities. I will say for a start that I had an aha moment at one point when I visited one of the agencies and, got to interact with some of the different people from different cultures. And I tried to greet someone, the way we normally do. And a person was like, uh-oh, no, we do not greet. And so these nuances confront us in our everyday life. I mentioned recently when I used to work in the humanitarian field in South Sudan, where we went to talk to a community of women on issues to do with human rights and reproductive health, and we were literally, and I mean this, almost shot, by you know uh, gang related, I mean, people moving with guns, but who were from a dominant tribe and, and were male, that we could not actually, as men, be talking to their wives. So you get to learn that there's a lot of culture that plays in the different settings that we find ourselves in. And so I will go straight to a Slido that I would like you all to participate in, if you don't mind. And there's a question: does your organization offer culturally competence training, guidelines, or educations? If you don't mind, get your phones and just let's have a look at if you in your various organizations go through some of these have all these cultural nuances that affecting you and the trainings. Okay, I see no. Someone says no. Do we have one or two more? Yes. Right. It's almost at par right now. 6 people, active polls. No. Half, half, half. All right. All right. All right. I will start off by defining what cultural competences are. Part of the studies out there talk about competency as defined as a set of congruent behaviors, and attitudes. Some of them you cannot are overt, some of them are non-overt, that together in systems, organizations, or among professionals, affect us, but then also enable us, to work effectively in cross-cultural settings. So it's a widely recognized way of, if actually affect issues to do with cultural competence, how that actually impacts on effective service delivery. And I'll jump straight to a dramatic scenario, which is going to come later on about filling the gaps. But then we just know that while we practice as providers, that cultural competence fosters effective communication, and it enhances trust and rapport. It creates that trust and bridges communication gaps. And then if you have culturally competent staff, these can develop personalized care plans that consider the unique cultural and social needs of all the refugees and all the types of refugees that you have, and this actually enables a very positive environment. And then it also allows staff to provide care that aligns with the preferences. And then also staff can act as cultural mediators. Now, there are core ethic principles we have to deal with while we're employing all these programs to do with that embrace cultural competencies. The respect for autonomy, which is the right to hold an own viewpoint. This is a key tenet, especially in the US, where freedom is one of the very, 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 very big attributes. So as you as providers, interfacing with your clients, they have a right to own their viewpoints and freedom to make their choices and act voluntarily according to their preferences. Now, we also have to act with empathy, act with kindness, charity, of doing good to others. It's a core ethical principle. And then, of course, we have the do no harm principle, which transcends not only in the humanitarian field, but even all from the medical fields, that whatever we do in our programming, we are looking to not doing any harm, as a direct consequence of our programming. Then, of course, we have the ethics of justice, which deals with moral choices. We've got to be advocates for our clients, advocate for what they're going through, advocate for their needs, be there for them, be human, basically. So I will go to the assumptions we normally have about cultural competencies, which sometimes overemphasize, cultural traits and differences and conflate culture with ethnicity, nationality, or language and reduce complex behaviors just to stereotypes. There are certain other tensions that are ethnographic in approach and which highlight what is important to individuals as culturally situated subjects without essentializing culture or assuming it is the most critical factor. You know, and then basically the whole issue of self-awareness can also help frontline or workers, or service providers avoid making some of these assumptions and generalizations. And there's also the issue of communicating honestly. Sometimes we find ourselves in those situations where we may not really know about another culture, but if we come out and like speak honestly that, hey, this is where I'm coming from. I hear you. I would like to listen to where you're coming from. And then together, we can bridge those gaps. That will actually build trust. And trust is very, very, very key in this field, especially because most of the clients we actually service depend on you, the provider, depend on you, the caseworker, depend on you, the person who is dealing with everything to do with their lives. So that element of trust helps them integrate better, helps them, open up, and then help them even be willing to learn what you are trying to do for them. Trying to do, English courses, a person might not come up with a barrier. A person will say, hey, I need to learn, because just giving me that opportunity to learn will propel me forward to whatever I intend to gain in this new life of mine. All right, I have a video that I would like you to listen very, 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 very carefully to. This is a cultural song. It is about filling the gaps. This was a video in Uganda, and you see in the background there you have people playing percussions. They're playing on a xylophone. Now they have drums, they have sticks. But as you listen to this, listen to the gentleman in a white shirt who is going to communicate something, and it is about filling the gaps. Let me play it. Video rolling shortly. Listen carefully.
I can't hear it.
Okay. Okay. All right. I understand some are not hearing it, so I'm just going to allow sound in share screen. Just give me a second. Okay. Okay. Just give me a second. All right, where do we go to? This is same sound. Share screen. Just give me a second. Audio. Technology is a problem, but I'm getting there. Okay. I'm going to try it again. Just let me know if it's going through. Is it on now? All right. What we're going to do as I figure this out, basically, they are playing an audio. They're playing a percussion instrument, and just like a symphony, everyone has got a contribution to make. Where there are gaps, you come in and fill those gaps. Now, in cultural competence programming, we know that we are providing a service, you know, but then there are nuances that go with provision of that services. People come with different cultural settings. So it is our role to actually understand where those nuances are in our experiences and fill those gaps. Now, it all starts with self. We're doing a service to the refugees that are coming in. So how do we serve them above our self-interest? Because we serve them with empathy, we serve them with understanding. You know, those are simple, simple things that empower people, that empower trust, that build up trust. Through this pursuit of social change, you know, we act on behalf of these vulnerable communities. They're coming through trauma. That is the whole essence of trauma-informed care, understanding their cultures, because the cultures come in different forms. People are coming with different religions. People are coming with different um, issues. Some societies are patriarchal. You know, others come with norms that in the Western world sometimes is, you know, problematic to understand. But if we actually sit down and listen to where we come from or where they're coming from, it helps us best understand and personalize the type of care we give them, you know, and this will improve ultimately the outcomes that you're all looking for, because some of these cohorts that are coming in come with a lot of mental health issues, you know, and just the stress alone has got to have some form of a mitigation. And this is really holistic, you know, from the curative all the way to the psychological treatments and all that. But then there is that personal, interpersonal kind of understanding between you, the provider, and them that comes with some sort of cultural kind of programming, which would really help. So we have to also ensure that their dignity and worth is actually, you know, restored. Look at some of the refugees that come in, almost all of them coming in. You have removed, I mean, they've been removed from a setting that has then, they've got out of the past, they've come into a new country. I came in as an immigrant, you know, I left my past, came in and started anew. You come in with a high level of expectations into a society that you've got to adapt to, that is a fast-moving society with a different cultural setting altogether. So it is a different enabling environment that you've got to actually try to get up to speed with. And so understanding different cultures, you know, and human relationships can actually foster and restore and enhance the well-being of the people we serve. And the key tenet of service is also service with integrity. You know, we go out there to provide our services to them, but we have to have integrity. That is a key tenet of service. All right. Okay. I'll need you to again to get onto your sliders and answer a few of these questions. are your organizations that are fostering? How are they fostering cultural competence? You know, we have the different multiple question answers there. Is it through cultural sensitivity training? Is it through diverse hiring practices? Is it language? Is it all of the above? Right. 75%, 83% say all of the above. 86% say all the above. Cultural sensitivity training, you are very, very, very right. Actually, it's going to 89%, all the above. Yeah, actually, all the above is true. Through culturally sensitive sensitivity training, diverse hiring practices where, for example, in this situation where we're having a huge surge of CHEs coming in, it's only proper that providers, hire people with those cultural backgrounds. It's not only about hiring someone who knows the language, but maybe hiring a person from that community as part of your program. So that actually would help them know the people they're dealing with. They know the cultural nuances they're dealing with. And that is very, very important. Of course, we also have language support. That is one of the key barriers we're having. We have interpretation services. That is very, very key. Problem is, translate services, it's just a function. But how about having people who actually act as mediators from those communities and can translate and know where they're coming from and be that mediation between them and the actual service referrals you're dealing with? That would go a long way in helping. All right. We see that I've already explained this, I think, in what I've just been talking to you about cultural sensitivity training, diverse hiring practices, language support and interpretation, community engagement, which cultivates better understanding, and having cultural mediators. Regarding like community engagement, it's a key aspect of my role, for example, as a health promotion uh, professional, where it is very, very, very pertinent that where we are seeing barriers, we've got to dig deeper and try to get to those communities, to the community influencers, to sit down with them and hear them. And when I say hear them, it's getting those influencers and getting part of those communities, and you are part of a meeting and you're allowing them to talk. They'll initially, of course, there are those issues of, trust and all that. But with time, once they get to know that you are in there for them, once they get to know that you understand them, it becomes very, 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 very easy for you, easy for them. And then it also helps you get specific needs for that population that you can then incorporate in your program, you know, program development and implementation. So basically, understanding is a very key tenet. Now, there's the issue of informed consent. Um, Once you are dealing, I've seen the processes that from intake all the way to all the different services. They come with different, processes that need consent, for example. At intake, you are getting refugees coming in, you are asking them various questions. Some of these questions are really very, 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 very personal. I would even think that depending on the different cultures of where people are coming from, it is only proper to get them into a comfortable zone where they can actually speak to you. I was seeing a situation where someone from, a certain country X was coming in, but, you know, the type of questions that go into at intake could be really very, very personal for that person to actually delve deep So how do you understand that culture? And you say, oh, I will get a person who can actually understand this culture to go and sit with this person. And then, ask those questions. But while you asking those questions, you've got to communicate to them very, very clear from the onset what the goal of this, the stated purpose of this questioning is all about, what this process leads to, and 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 also let them know that this is voluntary. They can actually opt out, you know. And then also you've got to put into places, how are you going to store their information? What are those strategies if there's a crisis that emanates from a cultural misunderstanding? What are those steps? So once you're building your programs, you should also consider having a crisis kind of scenario, preset, that we have this type of programming coming in, the type of clients we have. What if there's a misunderstanding? What are the steps to fall back to? And then we also have to be mindful that while we're doing informed consent, the issues to do with their capacity to make rational decisions. And it goes to the whole issue of health literacy. Some of our uh, uh, refugees that are coming in may not have that literacy level to make certain decisions. So you've got to gauge that, you know, gauge that so that the type of questions you're asking them might not be at a level that they may not understand. Or better still, it would be best for you to get another colleague, a liaison from that community who then can come and be part of this conversation. Because then that bridges your gap into how to effectively communicate and elicit that information that you want to get from your client. Then confidentiality is very, very important. We all know this in our different lives here. We are very worried about our issues, issues to do with privacy going out there to everyone. So during that informed consent, you said you've got to actually be mindful of how you are going to store information. Is it going to be how secure is it going to be? You may not have encrypted services per se, but you have to find best practice ways of storing information, and only accessible to program staff with the need to know, people who are working on that and who can access. And even the information has just got to be as minimal as possible. Of course, the detailed information is stored somewhere, but the ones that allow you to go on with your programming should be, at a level that only you staff have. So those issues of limited access really are very, 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 very important. And then there's also supposed to be training and awareness amongst your staff, the providers, around this, so that we weed out issues to do with confidentiality, to do with you know people being very, very some people might be, unbeknownst to them, very careless. So there are compliance issues there, there are legal issues there that we should be very, very careful and mindful of. And then, of course, at the end of the day, how long is the data also going to be, you know, uh, secured for? Those are ethical questions that at a higher echelon of your organizations should be answering. But all those point to the matters to do with confidentiality. And then we also have the challenges, of course, which I've already given to you about the different cultures, where we have issues of power imbalances. Person just comes, he had all the power wherever he was coming from, and that has been suppressed at no fault of his, but because of issues happening, be it war and all that, and is forced to relocate. So you find those weigh on issues to do with self-esteem and also lead to trauma in certain situations. So these are the common challenges that I've listed there: language barriers, cultural norms, data sensitivities and confidentiality, religious sensitivities that we have to be mindful of. We all work under a very uh, unique and embracing code of being, people with empathy and a humanitarian sense of the word. And we've got to be mindful of some of these emerging issues to do with gender and minority issues. You know, we also have to be wary of the fact that there are resource constraints in the different referral sources that we are trying to look out for. Some may not have cultural, you know, competent uh, kind of inbuilt environments that are very, very comfortable for our clients. So those we've got to find ways of navigating. And the best way, in my view, and which is also best practice, is collaboration. All of you here, I'm sure, come from different agencies, and all of them have different guiding principles, but you're working towards one goal. Unbeknownst to you, you may all have different, programming attributes that the other may not have. So if you collaborated together, you would find ways of filling some of these gaps. And some of these gaps are just referral pathways to cultural sensitive kind of programming. So it is just that referral. Which organization has this kind of, activity that is happening? Some of our cultures have people who are mindful of what type of food they eat, be it maybe vegetarians, maybe people who, certain religious communities have specially made food that they come, they feed off. For example, just one example, from the Muslim community, you have that element of halal, halal meat and all that. So if your client were to come in and you have an obligation to resettle that client and then also help them with the food, if you don't understand that they have certain specific needs, a person who will come and tell you that I can only get food from maybe a butcher that has got these kind of norms, it might be hard for you to understand. But if you are armed with some of these, cultural information, foundational knowledge in your head, you'll only understand as a caseworker, maybe who has gone to at arrivals to pick up a guest, that this is where I am going to take this person, this is where I'm going to order their food from. You'll be mindful of that. I'll give you another example. I've got people who have gone to homes of some of the refugees, and just out of respect because of their culture, you cannot enter with shoes, for example. Just the way we would go in and enter with shoes, it'd be a problem. But if you understood that from where they're coming from, you'd be, knowledgeable, and that would build respect, that will build trust, and an enabling environment that allows you to thrive, and then allows your client, to embrace you, to embrace your organization, to embrace the services. And even if your services are falling a little bit short, if you have trust with someone who believes in you, can give you a second chance and say, oh, yes, I understand. This is the situation. But if you do not build those uh, um, uh, linkages, it becomes problematic. And don't get me wrong, it is also two-way, and that's where issues of speaking, very confidently and openly also helps. Like you're speaking to your client and you're understanding them, but you're also letting them know that I am trying to understand you. I hope that we can build this rapport and understand each other, where I'm also coming from, what challenges or what I may bring to the table, so that we can meet. Might not be a midway, but somewhere. That is very, very, very important. Okay, there are ethical dilemmas, of course. I've just mentioned of uninformed consents for uh, screening, for example. Various cultures are having problems. We have uptakes of screenings at a low, maybe even very, very low in CHEs for various issues to do with stigma, to be lack of trust on the healthcare systems. And why is it so? It's because of stereotypical issues, word of mouth that goes out in communities. But how do you reverse that? Because the truth might not be what they perceive it to be. But it's a perception that in behavior change has got to be, that narrative has got to be changed steadily, progressively, and in a sustained manner. And it all boils down to sensitivity. How do you then immerse yourself in the cultures and adapt them? If you're going to do informed consent, how are you going to adapt culturally sensitive ways of informing that you're going to give to them, and ensuring there's a two-way conversation which is engaging and builds respect and trust? And then we also have other dilemmas, for example, in child protection issues, balancing those protection principles with cultural practices. Yes, we have sets of rules in the US, and our refugees also come with different experience from wherever they're coming from, the different settings they're coming from. So how do you try to navigate your way by explaining that there are these cultural norms you can enforce within your culture, but also making them aware that there are laws that govern and protect children? So bridging those gaps really can help the communities we serve. The issues to do with GBV reporting, the dilemmas of reprisals, and those are really very, very, very apparent in the different cultures that have patriarchal systems, where you have uh, there are issues that may be or perceived to be happening, but the reporting cannot be done because of fear of reprisal. So we have to really understand where these are coming from to be able to then, help them. I spoke about the issue of feeding, that is religious dietary practices, in providing food that aligns with religious dietary. That alone, if you understood, would help and enable or give a self, or I mean a feeling of self-esteem, restores that amongst the communities that you're dealing with. Then of course the issues of privacy and data collection. How to collate data for humanitarian purposes may conflict with cultural norms around privacy, but still it takes two to understand. So it is your role as a service provider, as an organization, to ensure that your caseworkers are actually having those kinds of conversations in a sustained way. And these dilemmas can all be like addressed through ongoing training, and having mechanisms for feedback on those aspects. Because you may find that there are issues with your programming that may not necessarily be just about the service delivery, but it's just the understanding that you and your clients need, in order to go forward. I have that Paul, again, I just wanted you, if you can, to list the best practices that we've just discussed. What are those best practices, just as a matter of recall? If you can quickly do that, maybe 2 minutes. What are these best practices that we have discussed? From informed consent and all that, privacy. Feel free just to write it down there. Two people typing. Right. We should be aware of the norms of the particular culture. That is very, very important. Very, very, very important. We have to be mindful of religious dietary needs, informed consent, and language barriers. Correct. That is very, very key as we, provide our services to a diverse community of people coming with different experiences. Thank you for that. So the best practices right now, cultural competence training, having cultural diverse staff, informed consent processes, language access, community engagement, and then tailored programming and trauma-informed care. We can't, emphasize that a lot. We have to really do that a lot. Gender sensitivity, respect for human rights, confidentiality protocols, flexible service delivery. We have some of our schedules for doing things that are seemingly preset, and sometimes we have to be a little bit flexible and mindful of who we are dealing with, and being accommodative to ensure that what we are aiming to do kind of accommodate equally and make it easy for the person you're dealing with. Then, of course, I spoke about cultural liaisons to bridge communication gaps, and then collaboration with community organizations. You provide a service, but out there in the different counties, we have community-based organizations. We have faith-based organizations. You can use these as referral sources. Your client is going through issues to do with isolation. Set him up with a church. He's got peers around there. Set him up with a peer-to-peer group. I went to this session where the different cultures in one setting, but it did not elicit a lot of conversation, because you have that sense that if you then isolated them into peer-to-peers, people who of like mind, like getting this cohort into regular meetings, first to gain that confidence amongst them, and then with time, integrate them into communities they serve. That would go a long way. And just being a friend, it is very, very, very simple. We just don't go to work. Just be that friend. Give the service that you are doing with a smile. It doesn't hurt to do that. Then of course we've got to be mindful of this discriminatory practices, and of course, also have a crisis preparedness. Okay, we have the importance of training. I've already actually stated that earlier, but ongoing training allows service providers to stay updated on evolving needs and preferences of refugee communities. And then it also equips them with skills to deliver trauma-informed care. And it allows providers to adhere to relevant and emerging issues that are coming day to day, as we see different cohorts of different refugees coming in. And when I talk about refugees here, I'm just giving you a general word that encompasses the different groups that are coming in. It could be it the temporary parolees that are coming in, maybe the SIVs and all that. Just using that word just as an encompassing word that, takes into, just takes them together as one. So the importance of training also helps us provide ways to navigate potential conflicts arising from how we, work together with them. And then it also enables you, the providers, to engage with refugee communities more effectively. The more you do that, the more your programming becomes easier. The more it also reduces the stress that I understand, so, providers may have, in their day-to-day workings, because right now there's a huge surge. The numbers were not built for this. The way it was built in the past was, a refugee number which was like low in the 800s. Right now we're getting thousands, in the tens of thousands. So I know people are feeling levels of being overwhelmed, and that can really work, to your psyche. It really can affect you. But, if you understand what is happening, you can also brace yourself with that. And then, bring in more staff, train them on cultural competency, and then find ways of together moving this needle a little bit higher in the quality of life that you are trying to enable in your clients. Okay, I spoke about the importance of collaboration with the local communities and community experts, and subject matter experts on issues to do with culture. And this ultimately nurtures cultural understandings and gives more insights to what is happening, and then helps also bridge the gap in communication. But I go on to, keep running back to this word of building trust. That is very, very important. Trust is very, very important. The more you build it, the more effective your service provision will be. And then, of course, collaboration also will help you in resource utilization with local partnerships, leveraging existing community resources, networks, and support systems, and addressing trauma within local contexts, that would help your trauma-informed approaches. And of course, if you do all these in a sustainable manner, every time you're doing, it's just not a one-off. Keep doing it. It reinforces, these actors reinforces. And, in this game of, behavior change, basically, or understanding, it's not, oh, this will happen in one day, or this will happen in 2 days. But this happens over time. But if you have a staff who actually understand this and work every day towards understanding that, you get a very good understanding with your clients and a very good environment. We are about to wind up again. Basically, cultural competencies foster effective communications, build trust and rapport, leads to more effective program designs and provisions of relevant services, align services with preferences for everyone, actually, not only older refugees, sorry for that, and promotes workplace cultures that value diversity, creating inclusive environment for both staff, and the refugees. And lastly, do we have any questions? If you have any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat. If you feel like you have something to say about this, you could kindly unmute and have your word. We got 10 minutes to go. Anyone? Any questions? All right. What I would like you to do is, if you don't mind, just share your emails. You can see my contacts there in the last slide. Your emails so that I shall be able to send you this slide, and you'll also be able to then access that video that I would have loved for you to see. But some of these limitations in technology and all that, it happens to the very best of everyone. So I would really want to share that with you. And so the email is there. And if you do not have any questions right now, I'll give you your 9 minutes back to the top of the hour. It's been a pleasure seeing all of you in this training, and I hope we can have many more in the future in the various aspects. And feel free to send us specific needs that you may want us to actually address, and me and the team will be able to get back to you. you know but I can see everyone sending thanks. I appreciate you, Carissa. Thanks, Mahmoud. um Thank you, everyone. Victoria, I see you. Thank you. Thank you again. There's Victoria Melendez. Oh, there are very many Victorias today. Thank you very much. I appreciate. Thank you. And you can feel free to leave to your own convenience. But I see you all. Elizabeth, I see you again. Heather, I see you. Thank you, Nicholas Martin. I saw you at the beginning, tried your video on. I would have loved for you to keep it on, but it's okay. I see you. Thank you. Thank you, Nicholas. Melissa, thank you. Rachel, thank you. Am I spelling this right? Eberahona. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. We still have three in the house: Melissa, Rachel, and Ebarahona. Okay.